day everyone and welcome to this lectures on physico-chemical processes or wastewater treatment, and we will continue with the settling and sedimentation lectures that we learned little bit regarding them in the previous lectures. Now we will continue with the same. So, in the previous lectures we started with determining the terminal velocity or settling velocity of the particles in a discrete system. Thereafter we find that how we can use that terminal velocity along with the overflow rate to design a sedimentation basin for discrete system. Now there is other types of settling behaviors which are possible. One is like Falkland settling. So, in the previous lectures we studied regarding the Falkland settling, and we understood that there is a column test via which we can design a system for Falkland settling also. For that actually that system which exists, that is true for only existing treatment facility, suppose we have to upgrade it or otherwise. Now, if we have to go for other type of systems where suppose compressive settling is occurring or where hindered settling is occurring, then we learn regarding the conditions in which high concentration slurries may settle as a hindered or compression settling conditions, and under those conditions we also learn little bit regarding a method in which the experiments can be performed in the lab, and we can that data can be used for designing a sedimentation tank for the conditions where high concentration slurries are there. And within the high concentration slurries, when the settling is happening, there are different zones which are possible. So, these zones we have studied in detail in previous class. So, I will not be just giving an introduction that we have a hindered settling zone, we have transition settling zone, and we have compression settling zone. And what we do is that we perform test and we try to measure the height where there is a clear zone and where the solids are present. So, we always measure this height with respect to time. So, this is our interest, primary interest is at the interface of the height where the clear water zone and the settling zone, which may be hindered zone, transition zone or compressive settling zone, any of the combinations are possible. So, that we cross check. So, in the column what we do is that we take column, and in the column we will be adding a water which contains high concentration slurry, and as soon as it gets mixed and we start measuring the time at which we have a clear zone is there. So, this will contain lot of solid, all these conditions will be there. So, this will be all solids will be there, but this zone will be clear zone, and we measure the height of this clear zone with respect to time. So, this type of data we get with respect to time, that what is the interface where the clear zone is there, and from this data we have to find out design the overall sedimentation basis based upon this batch test results. So, we can perform few batch test results, and from that we can decide the final overflow rate, and actually directly we can decide for the area which is needed for the clarification, area which is needed for the thickening, and rate of sludge withdrawal. So, that is also possible that we have to calculate, that we can calculate. So, what we perform is the column settling test, from which we get the height, interface height versus time data, and which are further used for determining the clarification area and thickening area. So, we will try to learn these things in today's lecture. Now, generally what will happen, that area required for thickening, which will be much higher than the area required for settling. So, area required for thickening will generally be higher. So, whichever area is higher, that area will take for design of the settler. So, this is there. Now, the free settling velocity, that is true for discrete or flocculant sometimes, that will rarely be the controlling factor for high concentration slurries. In the activated sludge process, where the particles are generally light, fluffy, and they are activated sludge. So, under those conditions, the flocculant settling velocity sometimes may be important, or flocculant settling conditions may be prevailing. So, under those conditions, the other types of behavior where free settling velocity etcetera may become important. Otherwise, the area of the thickening will generally be higher than the area of settling, and that will be considered. Now, how to find out the area required for the thickening and how to find out the area required for clarification, that we are going to learn right now. So, from the column test. So, we are assuming that the column is having a height of h0 and it is filled with a slurry suspension like which is having a concentration of C0. So, initial concentration is known. The rate at which the interface decreases or subsidize, then it is equal to the slope of the curve at that point in the time. So, we always measure that height. Then according to the procedure, area required for thickening is calculated by this particular equation. Now, in this equation we have to find out the area required, this Tu, where is the time, Tu is the time to each desired underflow condition that we have to go. But this Tu determination is little bit tricky, and that we are going to learn. Within this equation, A is the area required for sludge thickening, Q is the flow rate into the tank. So, that will be known. This data we do not get from the bias data, this is already known to us because we have to design the basin for that particular flow rate. Then H0 is the initial height of the interface in the column test, and Tu is the time required for desired underflow concentration. So, first this will be known to us, because what is the maximum desired underflow concentration that we are going to reach, that we have to decide, and based upon that this Tu value is calculated. Now, going further, the critical concentration controlling the solids handling in the tank that will occur at certain height H2, where the concentration is C2. So, that we have to find out, and that we will try to understand further. This point is determined by extending the tangents at the hindered settling condition as well as in the compression regions of the subsidence curve. So, height versus time curve to the point of intersection and by setting the angles thus formed. So, we will try to learn, it may not be clear right now, but the procedure we will learn. So, what we do is that we have this type of curve, and first we determine this point C1. Okay. So, this C1 has to be determined, and for determining C1 actually we need to know that what is the maximum interface height that we have to reach. This HU is the term generally. So, HU can be find out. What we do is that we construct a horizontal line at depth HU, and this HU corresponds to the depth at which the solids are at the desired underflow concentration. So, we always fix this Cu value, this is the step 1. So, we have to fix the Cu value, this is the step 1, we can call it. Okay, step 1 is the fix the this underflow concentration value. Second step, step 2, determine HU. Okay, so, we can find out, determine the HU using this equation which is given here. So, C0 initial concentration, total height is already known to us, and Cu the underflow concentration already we have fixed it. So, HU we can find out. So, HU will in the curve, HU will be this point. Now, from this point, this is the step 3rd in a way, that step 3rd we draw construct a horizontal line at depth HU that corresponds to the depth, and it meets the actually subsidence line at point C2, point C1. So, we determine this point C1 at which it meets. So, we will have to find out, determine the C1 by drawing a horizontal line. So, draw a horizontal line and find out C1. So, horizontal line and calculate or determine the C1 value. So, this is the step. So, this is the third step, and so we do this. Now, what we do is that we draw two curves in the step 4. Actually, we will draw two curves, like we can call it a step 4 or something like this. So, a construct a tangent to the settling curve at the point indicated. Okay, this before going this, let us go for this. So, what we do is that we draw a curve here, then we draw a curve at the initial condition, and whatever is this angle which is getting formed, we bisect this angle, and so this is we determine the C2 value. So, this is how we determine. So, next step is little bit, there are number of steps in step 4, but we have to determine the C2 value, and in the next step what we do is that we draw a tangent at C2 which meets the first line at this point, and this point corresponds to TU. So, this is a little lengthy trick, but this is how we find out. So, determine the next step 5 is like determine the TU value. So, this we have to determine using a number of steps. So, construct a tangent at the settling curve indicated by point C1, construct a vertical line from the point of intersection of the two lines drawn in step 1 and 2. So, we have to draw a bisection line of the point of interest, whatever is the angle, and that will, at that point we have to draw another tangent line which meets the first line itself at TU, and then we find out. So, I am repeating this overall step here. We have a curve, if we can, if first step is to find out h nu, second step draw a curve here and which meets the settling curve at point C1, draw two tangent line, one at C1, another at initial settling curve, they meet at some point. Now, we have to bisect this particular angle, and this will meet the settling curve at point C2, and here again the third tangent is drawn which meets the initial horizontal line at point this, and this is called TU. So, through this we can determine. So, and this is the procedure which is adopted to find out this T value. The area required for thickening is computed using the equation which was given here. So, through this we can find out the area required for thickening. So, this is the step, and the area required for clarification is also found out using the initial condition. So, we will try to solve one problem, and from that we will try to find out both the area required for thickening and the clarification, and from here this problem we will understand it more. So, a settling curve is shown in the following diagram next page, which was obtained for an actuated sludge system which contained a initial solid concentration C0 of 3000 milligram per liter. So, this is given. Now, in the initial height of the interface in the settling column, so we have a settling column which is having a height 1 meter, and we determine the, what we have to do, the curve is shown here, this type of curve. So, this is the same as earlier, but we are repeating it here. So, curve is shown from 1 meter height, and we are showing that okay, the curve is like this, and it is going this blue color. So, this curve is going like this, and we actually measure with respect to time, we measure the height, and from this curve, this data we draw this curve. So, this is there. Now, from this actually we have to determine the area required to yield a thickened solid concentration of 15,000 milligram per liter. So, ultimate concentration value is already set, that we have to compress it to a condition of 15,000 milligram per liter. The total flow is we have to design the system for 3 meter cube per minute, okay. And we have to determine the solid loading and the overflow rate also. So, this is being asked for this condition. Now, let us go further and try to solve this. So, this is the curve which is there. So, first step is that we have to find out the HU. So, right now we are going for finding out the thickener area, and for that we need to find out the HU value. Now, initial concentration and initial height both are given. So, initial concentration is 3000 milligram per liter, initial height is 1 meter, and the underflow concentration is already fixed at 15,000 milligram per liter. So, if we solve it, we will be finding at 0.2 meter is the ultimate height that will be there, where all the solids will remain below that. So, a horizontal, what we do is that we draw a horizontal line is constructed at HU is equal to 0.2, which meets the settling curve at point C1. So, this is there. So, we identify HU, this is equal to 0.2 meter. So, this point, and we draw a horizontal line which meets the settling curve at point C1. So, this is the step 1. Now, we have to draw tangents to the curve at point C1 at time t is equal to 0. So, what we do is that we draw a curve here which is tangent to the initial settling condition, and this is the curve. So, this is second step in a way. Now, again we draw a curve tangent line at point C1 also. So, draw a curve at point tangent at point C1 as well as at time t is equal to 0. So, we draw the curve at point C2 also. So, this is another tangent which is drawn. So, now we have an angle which is there. So, this angle is there and we have to bisect this angle, drawing a line. So, the line bisecting the angle formed between the tangents meets the settling curve at point C2. So, we determine this particular line, and this meets the curve at point C2 in this settling curve. So, this is the next step. Now, the further step is a tangent is further drawn to the settling curve at C2, and the midpoint of the region between the hindered and compression settling. So, this point actually represents the midpoint of the hindered settling and the compression settling, and now we draw a tangent at this point, and this tangent has been drawn. Okay, so you can see here a tangent has been drawn here and this tangent has been drawn. Now, this tangent meets the initial horizontal line at this point, the corresponding to which the time is known, and that time is 255 minutes. So, this is there. This is what is written: the intersection of the tangent at C2 and the line HU is equal to 0.2 meter determine the time TU is equal to 255 minutes. So, thus we determine the point TU is equal to ultimate time to be 255 minutes, and therefore, the area required for thickening can be calculated as A is equal to Q into TU divided by H0. So, H0 was the height already known, T is the flow rate which is already fixed, okay, and 255 is this value, and this is equal to 765 meter square. Now, there is a trick here that if we find that okay, this is higher side or lower side, what we can do is that we can, in the actual system we can always divide this flow rate. So, if we may be possible, we can take 1 meter cube only per minute in place of 3 meter cube per minute. So, the overall area for one thickener will get reduced. So, depending upon this Cu, remember this Tu was only dependent upon Cu. So, if we change the Cu value, this Tu also changes. So, that means area also changes. So, we have only 2 points based upon which this area can be calculated. One is the that means the area is function of the Cu value as well as the Q value, and we these are the only 2 design parameters we can do, because the settling curve will always be same for this water which is having a some concentration, and also it depends upon the type of solid which is there, which is fluffy, which is higher dense, low dense, all those things. So, that consideration is only that height versus time curve, which is already obtained from the data. We have Cu which we can fix it, and then we have Q, the flow rate. So, this is there. Now, we can find out the clarification area also using this approach which is given here. So, what we do is that we try to find out the interface subsidence velocity, that how the interface is getting decreased. So, this subsidence velocity is determined by computing the slope of tangent drawn from the initial portion of the interface settling curve. So, for time t is equal to 0, whatever is the tangent that is drawn, and from that we can find out. So, like here we have targeted up to 0.7 meter. So, like we can determine that okay, up to what time it has reached. So, we are only taking this slope. So, we found that okay, up to 0.7 meter the decrease was highly linear, and from here 1 minus. So, you can see here unhindered settling rate has been calculated using 1 minus 0.7 divided by 38 minute was the time. So, this is the velocity, interface subsidence velocity we can calculate. Now, the area of calculation is very straightforward, and from this we can since the clarification rate is directly proportional to the liquid volume above the critical zone, it may be computed using this equation. So, like what we have done is that we have only taken up to a certain height, and from flow rate etc., we can compute this QC value. So, this is there, and from this calculation actually 2.25 meter cube per minute we can find out this QC. The flow rate has been calculated, the clarification rate has been calculated, and once the clarification rate is known, we are only taking at 2.25. So, clarification rate under up to this condition, we can take 0.3 also. So, up to this is 2.25 meter cube per minute, and using the subsidence velocity as well as this clarification rate, we can find out that 2.25 divided by this. So, area will be 285 meter square for the flow rate of 3 meter cube per minute. So, this clarification rate is there. Now, this area is much lower than the area of thickener. So, generally whenever there is a high concentration slurry is there, the thickener area will always be higher. So, if the thickener area is higher, we always select the higher area, and we have to design the systems based upon that area only. So, for this particular system, the 765 meter square area is higher, and we have to design the system based upon that only. We cannot take the lower one, otherwise the conditions will never be met. So, we can calculate the thickener area, we can calculate the clarification area, but generally thickener area will be higher, and we have to perform the calculations on this. So, till now what we have done is that we have studied the settling terminal velocity in discrete settling, then we went for Falkland settling, then we further went for hindered settling as well as the compression settling. So, previous condition was for that. Now, so all the 4 type of settling behaviors we have studied. Now, there are different classification of sedimentation tanks. Now, we are going for further understanding the sedimentation tanks, where they have to be used. There may be different settling behaviors which are possible in all these zones. So, where we commonly see the sedimentation tanks, this is given here in this slide, and after that we will continue with different types of settlers and other things with respect to design etc., that how they vary. There are high rate settlers etc. So, those things, tube settler, plate settlers are which are very common in now industry. So, we will study the details of those, but before that where are the sedimentation tanks which are used. So, sedimentation tanks are used in the grit chambers for removal of sand and grits in the overall design of water and wastewater systems. So, first place where the sedimentation tank will be in the grit chamber. It is not very difficult to design because everything will settle down very easily. Then for plain sedimentation tank, where the settleable solids have to be removed. So, we do not use any of the flocculant, coagulants etc. here, or some may be used, but generally for this the solids have enough density, they can settle down, or the size is bigger, and it is possible they may have a high concentration will be there. So, that may be falling within the compressive or hindered settling conditions. So, we can design the systems using whatever we have studied just now. Now, after that chemical precipitation tank will be there. So, that will be removed for fine suspended particles by adding coagulants or flocculants. So, under that condition flocculant settling regime may be there. So, we have to adopt the method that we have studied in the previous class for designing such systems, and also it is possible that if the slurry concentration is still high, we can use the hindered settling approach for the same. Similarly, in the septic tanks that are there in our homes, we have the both the sedimentation and sludge digestion both occur together. So, we have to take design as per the sedimentation things that we have learned, and along with that we have to take care of that enough time is there for sludge digestion etc. So, that is there. So, here also settling occurs in the septic tank. Then in the secondary settling tanks, we have not studied that much in detail because activated sludge and biological treatment we are not going to study in this subject as it is only for physico-chemical treatment, but in the biological treatment, after biological treatment there is always a secondary settling tank, and that the example we have taken, the previous example is of similar nature. So, for that also we can design the system. So, these are the different types of sedimentation tanks which are possible, which may be used in different types of water treatment plant. In some water treatment or wastewater treatment plant, all of these may be there. In some place only few of them may be used. So, it is possible to have any of these, and we can use the design ideas which are there for discrete settling, flocculant settling, hindered settling or compressive settling. So, those things we can we can take further for design of such systems. There are other tricks which have come into the picture, and like in place of only upflow clarifier or simple horizontal clarifier, now incline clarifier or plate clarifiers have also come. So, in those conditions what we do is that we try to see that the height that you have to settle is minimum possible. So, if we can reduce the height which any solid particle has to get has to settle down. So, So, if that height is very less, so it will reach the bottom of the settling zone very quickly as compared to getting out of the system. So, overall efficiencies can be increased a lot. So, the systems are designed in such a manner that we have a parallel settling zones and the height is lower and we have more settling which occurs in these conditions. So, we will try to learn all these things further in the next lecture onwards, and we will end this lecture now. And we have studied the little bit idea regarding different types of settling zones and how we can design the system. Now, we will understand the different types of settling or sedimentation tanks further, and what are the settling equipments right now which are used in the industries. So, little bit details of those we will study in the next class. So, thank you very much.